In the last few days, we've heard Trump say that China stole 250 million pieces of data, right, electoral information from American citizens. So I brought here Celso Quintanilla and Renato Machado for us to talk. Did China hack the American voting machines? Celso, the voting machines? How does this work? You're the specialist, a cyber analyst, right? Who talks about security?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting topic, right? Because nowadays, the adversaries, as we call them, who are these people that are part of these cyber attack groups, they don't break in anymore. They connect to any type of application, whether it's in an American defense system or in a Brazilian defense system, whether it's a defense system in Taiwan where there really is that geopolitical war, where China has a project called Made in China, which is how China plans to take over Taiwan, mainly because of the commercial strategy they have. So that's what we call these threat actors today, especially those actors who are funded by governments. Basically, we divide these actors into three segments: nation states, which are the ones funded by governments. China has developed very strong groups, especially in the area of defense, but today it uses this for...
To attack or to connect, as you said?
To connect and mainly to make a profit, right? Because to make money. To make money, exactly. No, and when we talk about these countries, it's not just China. We're talking about North Korea, we're talking about Russia, we're talking about Iran, we're talking about Pakistan, Afghanistan. So there's quite a wide range there. And yet, the Chinese nexus, as we call it, really refers to the threat actors that have a more significant impact all over the globe. Whether it's in terms of states and nations or in the context of e-crime as well.
In other words, what is e-crime? Just so we know what you're talking about.
E-crime actually refers to groups that are motivated purely by financial gain. So they're not funded by states or nations, but their focus is on corporate targets.
Breaking in and stealing data, stolen money, that's it?
Stealing data, money. Let's take Brazil as an example here, right? Yeah, PIX. Last year, there are reports that there were 20 billion, right, in illicit transfers, right?
That's 20
billion reais, right? So, in other words, the investment would actually be much lower than all the losses that the financial system also suffers, right? So that's also a super critical factor.
But going back then to the electronic voting machine in the United States, which Trump, here we can't even talk about our voting machines, right? They're impenetrable. They're impenetrable, right? Only the ones in the United States that
are penetrated
are violated. How was this process? Did China really tamper with the voting machine, or how did they steal this electoral data?
Actually, China has some techniques, right? So yeah, they have a technique where they embed themselves within network communication protocols. And they manage to go unnoticed by any kind of inspection or analysis that we do on edge devices, right? Which are these connection devices as well. Besides that, today, a very, very critical issue is the matter of China taking control. Through valid credentials and using these valid credentials, entering through several vectors, they manage to gain access. And they remain invisible to any kind of analysis or monitoring solution. So their main goal is to go unnoticed. So in other words,
the plan failed because it was discovered, right?
Yeah, but then it's just that it was discovered later, right? After they had already carried out the data extraction.
You spoke and it sounded Greek to us who don't understand.
Sorry for the lack of clarity sometimes, for not...
But in the sense of, how do they do it? Do they plug a wire into the cable, a flash drive into this electronic ballot box, into this electronic device to get the data? What is the practical procedure for doing this?
This actually, there are several ways, right? There's the physical way, but I believe that the physical way in this case wasn't how it happened, right? It really happened through digital means, exactly.
Look, so any phone, anything can be hacked nowadays.
Yes, exactly. And if we take, for example, in Brazil, last year there was a recorded number, right? In police reports, there were 2.2 million fraud cases, right? Because all threat actor groups, they work with social engineering, right? So this, we are all subject to it. Renato, you, our children, our relatives, father, mother, and so on. Especially because all this data ends up being leaked, right? I think recently at the Federal Revenue Service, there was also a breach of about 220 million Brazilian taxpayer ID numbers. So basically, the attacker has all your data. Your phone number, CPF, where you live, who your mother is, who your father is, who your siblings are, who your children are, where they study. So with social engineering, that's where they start. So today, it's very easy for the attacker to get in touch with any of us here and give us information that makes us feel comfortable that the call is a real one, and you end up giving him some kind of information so he can get an access credential. Whether it's your bank, your WhatsApp, your Instagram, or your company system, right? So that's why we say nowadays the attacker doesn't break in anymore. The attacker connects, right? Through valid means and routes.
On the internet.
On the internet.
In the digital world.
Exactly. And then,
you see, who would have imagined Renato Machado, a prospective candidate for Brazil's Chamber of Deputies from Paraná, who would have imagined that the United States would suffer such a massive theft of electoral data? But we know this, that this is part of a hybrid war that's happening right now. And I would say this is one of the most devastating weapons, right? Because Israel carried out a similar operation, or a group connected to Israel did a similar operation in Iran and shut down their banking system and took the regime's money, right? And overnight, everything turns into chaos, right? And we are seeing this war intensifying here in Latin America, even coming to Brazil.
Yeah, actually, Celso has been my friend for about 10 years now, right? He's one of the best in the field of cybersecurity, and today we see that it's a topic that doesn't get anyone elected. It doesn't bring votes. That's true, right? We see that it's a topic that needs to be addressed. Why? Because we see a lot of activity and even possible attack on the Itaipu power plant. The Third World War will be a cyber war. So today, out of the 10 biggest banks in Brazil, 9 of them have CrowdStrike handling their security. So it's a topic that needs to be taken seriously because we have organized crime that's inside and using technology to its advantage. So we have to take care. We need to have cybersecurity. Brazilian citizens deserve cybersecurity. Today, the state of Paraná has a lot of data about all the citizens within the state of Paraná. And how do you protect these people? How would that protection work, Celso?
yeah, actually, we live in a paradox, right? We have a pretty advanced digital maturity, right? When it comes to digital government, GovBR, and so on. But we have a very low maturity when it comes to cybersecurity, right? Unfortunately, the investments made in the core area, right, which is in the business area, are not made in security infrastructure as well. So I see this as a very critical factor, right? Because as Renato mentioned, especially when we talk about critical infrastructures, hydroelectric plants, water, utilities, dams. Anyway, this can really cause a pretty big catastrophe. I think that unfortunately Brazil is walking a tightrope and relying on luck, right? Because we say it's not about when you're going to be attacked. You're already being attacked and you don't know you're being attacked. Why? Again, today the attacker gets in, he connects in an invisible way, right? And he's just there extracting data without anyone seeing, without anyone monitoring, and without anyone knowing what kind of information he's constantly extracting there.
We see here the Copel case, right?
That was in 2021, right? It was a really critical attack. And again, once more, there wasn't a big impact because they managed to detect it more quickly, right?
I wanted to ask a question. We always discuss this, but I wanted to bring it up again. How does the government, because CrowdStrike works together with the American government, right? In defense, regarding the army, armed forces, and so on, and we know that Israel has been investing heavily in this area of cybercrime in defending itself. How does CrowdStrike see this issue? How do you, Celso, see this issue?
There are 2 points, right? Israel actually, because it's the most attacked country in the world, the biggest cybersecurity companies tend to be founded there, right? And then they moved their headquarters to the United States for commercial reasons. CrowdStrike is a company that was founded in the United States, right? Yeah, our founder, he comes from selling an incident response company that is really working. He worked on major cases. I think the biggest case was from the company he founded called Foundstone, which McAfee bought in 2010. It was the case of Saudi Aramco. In 2010, they had that issue with the Stuxnet attack, which is a really famous attack. And the big challenge the industry had was exactly being able to detect and contain these attacks more quickly. Yeah, and we actually developed a platform that from the start back in 2011, I mean 15 years ago, all our engineering is based on AI. So what we say is actually, especially now, that AI really isn't just one thing. It's not some trend that's still going to happen, but it's already a reality. We need to protect at machine speed because the attacks, they're at machine speed too. Right? And when we talk about the American government, there's a pretty big difference compared with our legal framework. Because in Brazil, the government organizations can't buy the best technology or the technologies that make the most sense. Because of the bidding law, right? Where they buy based on technical specifications, which aren't always the best. Because all this bureaucracy ends up taking a lot of time, really, and the government doesn't have the resources, the people to be able to speed all this up. Process, and in the United States, the process is different. Yeah, the tech companies, they already work within the regulatory framework, right? And the government really buys the best solution and the solution that best meets that need. But for example, do you think our electronic voting machines are 100% impenetrable? Yeah, I know I put you in a tough spot, but it's kind of a delicate question regarding that. But yeah, there's no such thing as a 100% secure solution. Right? So we say that not even CrowdStrike is a 100% secure solution. Why? There could be some kind of flaw one day. What we always say is when that flaw happens, what is the response time? What is the approach? How do you react to that kind of problem you had? So when people say that the electronic voting machine is 100% secure, I don't think it is, because no solution is 100% secure. No one can guarantee, right, that any kind of technology is 100% secure because there can be human error, there can be technological error anyway. There can be countless errors that could cause data leaks, downtime, or some kind of damage.
It's a topic we have to tread carefully around, right? To question, but everything is, as they say, everything can be breached, right? A telephone, a hydroelectric plant like Itaipu. And it's curious, right? How would they hack into Itaipu? Are the controls there, the valves, are they all connected to the internet nowadays?
So that's really funny because when you visit this kind of client, they say they work on a totally segregated network with no kind of external connection. But nowadays, basically, you have another problem called the supply chain. So some kind of supplier has some kind of connection there, which could be an entry point.
If he has a computer running Microsoft software,
Inside there, exactly, you know?
employees' cell phones, yes.
So that's how it is. So there's always that no, but I'm totally secure because of that. But there are countless other situations that end up creating some kind of vulnerability and some kind of access that can be compromised.
Well, but this week there was even some news that caught a lot of attention. OpenAI's AI, OpenIA from ChatGPT that broke into a system on its own. Is that really true?
It's true, it did.
It took a stand and it's true.
It decided to break in, exactly. But why? Because today, especially, the attacker uses AI to carry out attacks more quickly and mainly to scale those attacks as well. So the big challenge for the industry today is to protect at machine speed and mainly to protect all the paths the attacker can cover quickly. So just so you have an idea, we use a metric called breakout time. It's when the attacker lands on some vector, whether it's a workstation, a server, a cell phone, or a cloud environment, and
A little Wi-Fi router.
exactly on a plugged-in device. And how long does it take for it to move laterally to another device? That time in 2024 was 48 minutes. When we look at 2025, that time dropped to 29 minutes, a decrease of 65%. That's the average time. When we talk about the fastest time, it's 27 seconds.
Wow, so
27 seconds is already machine speed too,
real time.
right? In real time. So, I mean, the response time has to be very fast too.
You have to have an AI. A human can't handle it anymore, right?
Exactly, no.
So you have to have an AI handling the response. It's really a war, a digital war, right? That's what it is.
The thing is, AI will always depend on humans operating it as well. But it will give you the power to cover more ground faster and more broadly as well. So today what we mainly see is that there are some companies that run tests, right, of intrusion and protection in organizations. And we see, for example, that some types of tests are only detected by traditional tools after days, after weeks, like 4 days, 2 weeks, right? And by then, the attacker has already spread throughout the environment and already extracted data and already compromised data. Most organizations don't have that visibility.
And what are you going to do about the banks, right? I think what matters most is the money that's in the account. And today, everything is digital, right? You just make PIX transfers. How are we going to handle this in the future? Will the banks be able to make sure they can stop attempts to break in using AI?
I think that banks today have a higher level of maturity, more advanced, Much more, right? So much so that, as Renato mentioned, we work with 10 of the biggest banks, actually 9 of the biggest. Yeah. So most banks have many layers of protection. And these are layers of protection with highly advanced technology as well. So for the bank, does this risk exist? Yes, it does. But it's a risk that also can be mitigated more effectively.
Yeah, we need it. Because if there's no trust, it's the end of the world.
Right? Exactly.
If we can't trust that the money will be safe, that the power plant will also be operating without the risk of exploding, the global order really does fall apart. Because in the past, you used to think like this. I think that's even how people in Brazil think, right? Criminals wouldn't have that level of technology.
No, but criminals already have that technology now, right?
He's way ahead of the government. Yeah, look at the war in the Middle East, right? The criminals have the same drones as the states, right? Managed by AI.
Exactly, right?
The terrorists. Here, the PCC, Comando Vermelho, also operate at the highest level. And Brazil, interestingly enough, right? Brazil is seen as one of the most sophisticated countries for money laundering.
Exactly. In fact,
We even had the golden boy, right? Providing classes to the communities about drones.
To operate drones.
It was to operate drones.
I actually saw that news report too. That's right.
And tell me something, how do you see the role of AI in these wars that are happening? And especially regarding the capture of Maduro in the matter of the Shield of the Americas. How do you see their role in that, since you're more of a specialist in this area?
That's true, right? Good. Is it true that AI systems are already being used for data processing to select targets in real time? Yes. Is the Pentagon already using this?
Yes, exactly. So much so that like AI has the ability to figure out ways and routes, right? And vulnerabilities that haven't been discovered for years and hours.
That a general would take a lifetime to find.
Exactly. So, I mean, it already does that, right? And attackers are already using that power to capitalize on attacks as well.
So it was said, right, that they're using some AI systems over there in the war in the Middle East, identifying some targets. And here, to get Maduro, they say the whole operation was organized by an AI system. You're going to do this, like that, on this day, at this time. Go there and do it. The general will only go there and sign off if it makes sense to him, right? Obviously.
Yes, exactly. The operation. No, that's what we talk about, right? It took the internet 10 years to reach, I think, 800 million users. And if you look at ChatGPT, it took months, right? So like the adoption of AI today, it's much faster and much more exponential than any other technology we've ever seen, right? In fact, nowadays, people often ask, is the application based on AI or not? And if we go back to the internet era, back in the 2000s, people used to ask, is it a .com? It's the same thing, right? If we make this analogy between different eras, right? So today, basically, everything is AI.
That's all people talk about. There's even an AI bubble. AI.
No, and what's even funnier is that that's all people talk about. All companies are already using it, but none of the companies are concerned about visibility, about governance, about control. So in other words, AI is being used in an uncontrolled way. So all companies, all employees, all users are uploading documents, information, data, which are confidential data, right? And they end up being compromised, right? Because of this uncontrolled use.
So, in practical terms, if I upload my confidential document to ChatGPT to do an analysis, right? Billing data, or even a medical exam. Yeah, this data, it's not restricted just to my account. Is it almost like me taking a picture and posting it on Instagram?
That's what they say. Yeah, they say it's restricted to your account, but it's not, right? Yes, that's correct. This person has access.
If they're in it because it's a cloud, right? Just out of curiosity, is this data processed on my machine or is it processed on a server?
Processed on the server, so you can use ChatGPT, and when you type any kind of question, you see that it starts searching the web. It will search in several sources.
In the scan.
Exactly.
At some point, since I posted it on ChatGPT, it could become information that in your research.
Yes, exactly. Because why? Because the AI engine, the model, it's gathering global information. So it will take your information, Renato's information, my information from anyone. In other words,
If I create $1 million business in here, it's not mine anymore.
it's not yours now. This is public.
It's a strategy, right? Something like that. Exactly. And I even heard that the companies, the guy from Anthropic who was fighting, I think it's obviously a market fight, right? But he was accusing OpenAI of capturing people's business ideas. And it's there in that fine print that nobody ever reads, that it's their right, that they have the rights over that.
Yeah, why? Because like even if you use OpenAI or Claude in the paid model, right? Because today there's the free model, and honestly, this free model probably doesn't have any kind of control. But in this paid model, they say they exercise some level of oversight, but they don't guarantee it, right?
So
It's basically what you said.
that's already a loophole, right? That's already the loophole.
Yeah, just like you host the servers you have here, for example, on AWS or Google, which will provide that for you, right? The standard security terms and conditions, but it doesn't mean that their compliance is the same as the compliance and controls you need to have in-house, you know? So there really is that gap, that divergence, exactly, yeah.
Because then you create something of your own, worth millions, but suddenly one of these mega corporations has already sold your idea for many millions.
Yeah, no, so much so that today, if you want to start a business, you can just create it yourself too, right?
Exactly.
You type in, I want to create
That's it.
this podcast XYZ, it will give you the whole business case. I want to create a product, an info product, it will give you the whole case. Yeah, what's the most effective way to drive paid traffic anyway? Any kind of business case you want, you can create it, and it gives you, and it's even in PowerPoint if you want, so you can present it to some kind of investor.
It already creates some things. There are some serious flaws, at least in the version we have access to, right? Us mere mortals, right? Some really serious information flaws. It starts to go crazy, right? At a certain point, yeah.
It starts to hallucinate.
To hallucinate. It gives wrong information.
Yeah, that's why you always have to check, see if it makes sense or not. You can't just buy into that idea and start doing it, pass it on, yeah.
Yeah, at first I used GPT and believed in it completely. No, what he's saying here is the right strategy because he knows more than I do. But then in practice, it went really wrong.
No, and what happens is that you end up becoming a joke to the person who received it, because the person who received it says, man, the guy just put it in ChatGPT and sent this to me. Yeah, exactly. Because some mistakes are obvious, you know, they really are. And then the guy is using ChatGPT to put together this XYZ presentation for me.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to applying it, right? Like how to apply a strategy. Yeah, you know, it has a lot of theory, but it doesn't have the practical side, right? So it's not foolproof because it will always depend on you, the intermediary, to do certain things.
It's an interesting thing. Yeah, imagine we're talking about things that are quote unquote for good purposes. So imagine an attacker putting malicious code into the AI, and the AI will generate many other variants of that malicious code as well. So imagine mutating viruses. That's basically the kind of power AI has when it comes to cybercrime as well, you know?
Look, 10 years ago, experts used to say, never click on a link you don't recognize.
And even today, people still fall for those links, even today.
Today, people still fall for links, but in this world of AI, is the link thing already over? You don't need links anymore, or not yet?
It still exists, actually, the click rate. And the way these emails are sent when they're written by AI, they have much more credibility. Because before, when you received some kind of link, you started reading and you would already find several mistakes. Name errors, domain errors, semicolons, etc. Exactly, true. So AI is more effective now, so the click rate it's higher than when it's developed by humans too, but it still exists. There's another technique they use nowadays, like I mentioned, where the guy calls you. He already has all your information. He's going to call you. So you're Shimon. So Shimon, you were born on such and such date. Your CPF is such and such. You made a purchase at Casas Bahia on such and such date, and so on. And he keeps manipulating you. So I need XYZ data, and you end up the elderly.
Especially, right?
Especially if you're there distracted, that's when you end up really going along with it. And also giving some kind of access to that attacker.
That's just the surface level, right?
But even that surface level stuff moves a lot of money. As I mentioned, 2,200,000 digital frauds. If we put that in monetary terms, those values, is that worldwide much higher? No, Brazil.
Just in Brazil, imagine worldwide.
Yeah, because Brazil has this characteristic, right? It's more vulnerable, it's more advanced in this area, right?
That's true.
If you go, in fact, our financial system is much more advanced than the American financial system. I still use checks.
Paper, that's it. Is it reluctance to change or just being behind?
Actually, I think it's also a cultural thing, Do you understand? So
it's the use of paper, money, dollars, yeah.
I think it's a cultural thing for them because they really have the investment to digitize everything and to be much more technologically advanced.
For sure.
In their system compared to ours.
Public, right? Public.
Exactly.
The Brazilian public system is great, right? But when you go there in person, it's awful.
But if you use the digital version,
it's fantastic. With the Juvi, you can authenticate your signature and no longer need a notary or to visit the bank for transactions, right?
Unfortunately, your data is there and the attacker is him. In the hands of the government, no. It's in the hands of the government and in the hands of the...
Which is worse? Is it in the hands of the government or in the hands of or handing it over? Isn't it better to give it straight to the PCC and the commander?
It's easier, right?
But we have a huge problem, which is that our government doesn't invest in cybersecurity. They don't invest.
They don't even have gasoline. This week, the news came out. They don't even have gasoline to fuel the Brazilian Air Force's fighter jets.
But there's money, right?
Yeah, we paid $2 trillion in 6 months.
There is.
Right? There is money, it's just misallocated and misspent.
It's misallocated and misspent.
And now we've reached this humiliation where our Air Force doesn't have the resources. They stopped the pilots' training. Now they're only going to do rescue operations. Can you imagine the humiliation? As if they're going to spend on cybersecurity to protect data.
No, it's the kind of situation where when these organizations say that kind of thing, you start wondering whether they have some kind of agenda. Man, I don't have coffee, I don't have toilet paper. Yeah. Tell me, man, but exactly why? Because the purchasing process is very bureaucratic too. And this purchasing process takes a lot of time because the same amount of time the guy spends buying the pen, the coffee, the toilet paper, the water, etc., it's the same amount of time he'll spend buying a technology solution, which is much more critical than a simple consumer good, right?
And then we get into this issue that in the United States, there's no need for a bidding process, right? So CrowdStrike goes there, develops a project together with other companies that also develop. They analyze, see which is the best project, present it to the government, and that's it.
And the government has an analyst who will say, look, this is the best one.
This is the best for what we need.
Not here, right? Here you have to be friends with so-and-so, with the person some other guy recommended, And still make sure you get a little kickback so you can do it.
Isn't it amazing when we talk about it?
Still during the election.
When we talk about it, right, with people from outside about how our process works, they can't understand it. And then for them, they say that this procurement model we have of best technical specification, in quotes, and best price only happens in Brazil and India. In no other country in the world do they go by price. No, it's based on technical merit and price. You get it? In Brazil, basically, it's price. It's price. There's no technical merit involved. It's cheap. Exactly.
So like they do a bidding process. They need to solve the government's problem, right? The armed forces, but they're really not focusing on the project. They're not focusing on what they need. They're focusing on the price.
No, and there's ideological lobbying too. We had a case here with the armed forces. They were buying Israeli equipment. Even the minister, I don't know how he made that statement, right? He admitted on national television that it was the best product, it was the best price, but it was from the Jews. But it was Israeli, right? So the government blocked the purchase because it was from Israel. Look, best price, best product, but ideologically contaminated. And in this matter of cybersecurity, there shouldn't be any ideology, right? You have to guarantee the best. And from what I understand, your company works on defending these cybersecurity systems.
Exactly.
Including the government.
Exactly. Why? Because today the attacker works in a dynamic way. He doesn't work in a static way. So when we go back about 10 years, we even have a saying, the problem we have today isn't a malware problem, it's not a virus problem, right? Because people still talk, they still talk about antivirus even today, right? But the problem today isn't the virus anymore. The problem today is the adversary. It's how he connects, it's how he gains access. It's how he gets into the environment and goes unnoticed by any traditional solution. Why? The techniques and tactics they use are legitimate. So, in other words, he uses valid commands, he uses a valid application, he uses a valid operating system. So, the only way to detect it is in the behavioral context of the action that he does, you know. And if you look today, I don't know, 90% of the market still relies on a static approach instead of a dynamic one. You have to analyze behavior, analyze context, analyze, for example, that your credential is a valid access credential, but it was stolen. It's in the hands of an attacker who, posing as Chano, Zanon, or Renato, carries out valid activities with valid commands, but in a malicious context.
He pretends to be a real person who is inside the company.
Exactly.
And nobody sees it because it's not going to set off any red flags there.
Exactly, because it's valid.
It's valid.
We even joke about it, right? We see it a lot, right? It used to be Hollywood, now it's Netflix, right? And we say this, everything we see that we used to see in Hollywood, that we see in Netflix movies today, is something that happens to us every day.
It's real, that world.
It's real. Yeah, it's just that most of the incidents and attacks, they're not public. They only become public when they really cause a major outage. So yeah, nowadays we deal with daily attacks, but they're not public.
No, it doesn't affect, well, you know better than anyone, right? Something similar happened recently in Spain and Portugal, where they shut down the whole system. The bank failed, the power went out, right? It was an attack. Let's put it this way. Was it a terrorist attack or was it a system failure inside? Because that was really strange.
So if you look at the way they reported it, they say it was an outage, unavailability. Yeah.
The server went down.
Yeah, their answer is always going to be that. The power went out. The circuit breaker tripped. The server went down. You get it? The fuse blew. Yeah. He'll never say it's an attack. But
Given how big that was, I'm sure it was.
it was definitely an attack.
A Russian thing, a Chinese thing, it was definitely an attack. The North Koreans, they're very active, right?
Yes, because their goal is to make money for the regime.
The socialist regime, I saw a report that agents infiltrated Microsoft and other companies. They're doing
this all the time.
They get in there, stick their stuff in, and start manipulating the whole system, right?
But the process starts earlier. Yeah, there's a group that we call Famous Cholima, which is a group from North Korea. They use AI to create fake profiles on LinkedIn. That's right. Got it. Then they do the interview, use LLM models to answer the technical questions. Then they get hired. Then the moment they got the computer, they got access, then they start to...
And it's remote work, right? Some of them work remotely.
Most of them are developers, right? They can be anywhere in the world.
In fact, they use, I don't know what it's called, maybe VPN routing anyway, but it's to make it look like they're in the United States.
Exactly.
That they're in the United Kingdom, in some country in Europe, and not necessarily there in North Korea.
In a hole, or anywhere else in the world that is democratic, also suspicious.
Exactly.
We had an attack there, but that happens a lot. We had an attack on civil defense, right? That message that came, everyone went crazy. How do you see that? Is it just an attack, or can they use that message to infiltrate your phone and steal your data?
They could do everything. That kind of attack is carried out by what we call hacktivist groups. That's the group that just wants to make noise and say, hey, there's this vulnerability here. The system is open. I could have done something much, much worse. So much so that the response from the government, from the secretary, was that we shut down the systems and changed the passwords. But the attacker may have a number of other credentials.
Ways to get in.
Not just that one.
So we need to change every password, correct?
An attack of misanthropy. Got it?
So that's it. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask.
It's actually a very critical topic.
If there's a device turned on or even turned off, now I don't even know anymore, right? If you have a device like that, you're a potential target. And another thing, it's monitoring us 24 hours a day. That's not a secret anymore. I think any aunt on WhatsApp already knows she's being monitored 24 hours a day by this sensor, right? It's advanced and dual use, right? Because it can even be used militarily to set off an explosion in here and kill us, right? Israel recently carried out this operation inside Lebanon, and they did it inside Iran as well. Yeah, you know why I say that? We're here on YouTube, right? YouTube is now measuring people's behavior in real time while they're watching the video. They know when the guy looks away, when he stops paying attention to the video, because what you're saying got boring, right? It monitors and it defines this behavior. The audience's behavior is used to deliver your video to more people or fewer, right? And it knows exactly the moment the guy stops watching the video. It knows the moment he leaves the platform and goes to another channel, or when he leaves and closes it. If you said something here that made the guy close YouTube because he got irritated because he thought it was nonsense, and he leaves and turns it off, YouTube records that and it punishes the channel. Yes, it punishes our system.
Yeah, because it uses the same algorithm as Instagram and Facebook. So when you're going to make any kind of post on Insta, that's exactly it. It has to be a short 30-second post so you can grab attention, right? And it has to be something quick so you can keep going on that journey. Nothing that bores the user either. Not to mention that everything we're talking about here today is being heard. Soon, when we leave here, we'll open Instagram or Facebook and everyone will be talking about it. We'll start seeing things from the United States about cybersecurity and so on.
The ads, right? And now when you install Android, it's already there. When you accept the terms of agreement, it's all already spelled out. It will stay on it will keep monitoring, and it's explicit, it will use it to send you ads. Yes?
Exactly.
But these data are stored somewhere. Your preferences, who you like, and everything else, what you talk about every day, it's all stored somewhere. And then this place needs to be a completely secure vault, but it's not, right?
Then they say it is, right? In fact, I don't know if you guys saw it. There was a movie on Netflix a few years ago called The Net. It's about the guy from Facebook, from Instagram, who was the privacy guy from on the security side as well, where he says he used to warn Mark Zuckerberg about all the flaws, all the vulnerabilities, etc. And they ignored him, which is basically everything you're talking about. With all that, he didn't have any privacy at all.
No, he doesn't, right?
Did he sell? None?
And they sell that.
They sell, exactly.
It's just like Facebook, actually. Any social network will take your data, your behaviors, your preferences, your dreams, everything. And they'll sell it so that a brand X can reach you. There's even this guy's proposal. I don't think it was you who showed me, Renato. I think it was someone else. There's this guy, he's crazy. Because he has a project that he already presented to the US Congress, and they told him to get rid of that project, which is to charge royalties. It works. The big techs, for the information they sell about us.
But I think it makes perfect sense. So much so that today, if you look at it,
yeah.
Because today, if you think about it, Facebook and Instagram are the biggest content providers without providing any content, right? Sorry, without creating any content. Because all the content is created by us.
By us, right? And the data is right there for free.
Exactly.
You're going to sell my data to that store, to that group. You're going to have to pay me royalties from what you collect. That's his idea.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, but just imagine, right?
I have a friend who's an artificial intelligence scientist. And when I told him, look, I'm on this journey, he said to me, don't use paid traffic. I said, but why? He said, trust me. I just took a trip to Palotina, Toledo, that region. I get to the region, I had already mentioned that I was going there. When I arrived, a person, I'm not going to say the name, but some people, this person came up to me and said, I've been getting your reels for 3 days now. Wow, how? He said, no, look, want to see? I'll open my phone now. He opened his phone and started scrolling through the reels. Then look, there you were. He scrolled, and there you were again. So you can see how it's connected to artificial intelligence and social media. Before I even got to the city, the person was already showing me, I've seen you for 3 days now. Then I go to Marechal Candido Rondon, to the Boy do Rolete Festival, giving a shout out to my friend Kepler there, Kepler Otto. I get there, and the people at the fair are saying, I've already seen you, I saw you on the internet. So I called my friend and he said, that's why I told you not to use paid traffic, because then you'll get addicted to paid traffic, and every time you want to show up in some city somewhere,
it has to be through paid traffic?
There's paid traffic. Yeah, that's not it. It's 100% organic.
No, but I think for business, for you to have high performance, then that's the tool. You get it? Because with organic, you need 10 years, but you need to get elected tomorrow, right, man? Yeah.
I haven't used paid traffic so far, so it's going well, but yeah.
No, it's high performance. It was created for now.
I don't know if the government is going to veto this during the campaign, right?
Yeah, they won't. I don't think so, because they'll need to use it, right?
Everyone, right?
How do you ban it for one and not the other?
No, this turned into a marketing tool, right?
No, it's a work tool.
But like there are still campaign flyers, but the digital one here is...
Because here's the thing. You take the flyer and throw it in the trash.
It's powerful, exactly.
You carry it. You don't carry paper in your pocket, but you carry your phone, right? If it opened there, Renato is saying 7 times, 8, 10 times that I see you, I ignore you. But no, at some point I'm going to stop to listen to you because, man, there's something about this guy showing up here and not stopping. It's basically harassment, right? If you think about it, it's an invasion of privacy since there are things you don't want to see.
Yeah, out of every 10 things you see, 5 are ads, they're sponsored. Yeah. You have to keep clicking not interested. That's how they collect your data and see what you like.
It's pretty much like getting a call from a call center these days. It's wonderful.
Wonderful.
You mentioned there that you had to answer the calls, and I said, I don't answer any calls, any number I don't know.
Yeah, I just put it on mute.
I'm waiting for a call.
We're talking about podcasts here. It's already vibrated here about 15 times, but I'm sure it wasn't anything important.
Some calls where they say nothing, right?
Exactly. That's what it is. It's to capture your voice. Yeah,
That's what I was going to ask.
that's it.
So don't answer with hello then.
That's one way. Just
Wait to see if
you can say something
But do they capture my voice to create messages as if they're from me?
to create messages as if they're from you
I see, but does that happen every day, all the time, every day?
all the time.
And who does that, right? Is it a criminal group?
It's criminal. The criminals, it's like what we talk about. Cybercrime is much more organized and has much more investment than we do on our side, damn.
Man,
The defenders, So, yeah, we don't have the level of collaboration they have. We don't have the level of intelligence they have because, yeah, our investment is much lower and their investment is much higher. Just so you have an idea, globally, cybercrime would rank as the world's third largest economy in the world. $10 trillion, man.
wow. Almost like oil and...
Lance, $10 trillion. That's a lot of money.
Man, damn. They rob elderly people and exploit vulnerable victims.
Doing everything you can imagine, right? Because this issue of stealing data too, especially when you're talking about healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and clinical labs, health data today is much more valuable than other data. Yes. If the guy has cancer, if the guy has some kind of disease, so for the pharmaceutical industry, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. And how does the guy get my number? Does he steal it or does he buy it from those companies? He buys it, right? Buys it because even here, right, big tech companies sell it. They have packages for that. There was a news report that Iran managed to monitor where American soldiers were in the Middle East by buying advertising data about the kinds of products they'd been looking at on social media, right? So, they bought it there. There's a company that sells this data to locate where these guys are based on the product preferences they keep looking at on the internet. And they located the guys so they could launch the missiles right there, exactly in the region, the place where they are. You can find the person.
That's common, which is why I brought it up. There are some websites where you pay 59 reais per month through Mercado Pago and you get access to this site, to this one. Within this site, using a phone number, address, or CPF, you can pull up all the person's information and also all their family members' information.
Wow, you can use it. We're not safe anymore, right?
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, we have to be suspicious even of our own shadow.
Can you imagine? Governments already listen, right? I don't know if Brazil listens, but the United States got into this, even because of terrorism that actually happened there. But they really listen to citizens in real time, right? Someone who studies there in the schools, right? They say that if a student sends an audio message, writes a message, right, that suggests any behavior of taking their own life or someone else's life, the guy said, I feel like killing this guy. Yeah, the police show up at the school's door.
That's right. There's all this monitoring exactly, there really is.
besides that, right?
Nowadays, and that can be used for good, but it can also be used for harm.
Yeah, because if it's for good, it will protect lives. But if a terrible man comes into power,
Exactly, he already uses that for evil.
for evil.
Artificial intelligence today is used not only like it was used there in the train hunt, the Aragua, and all that part, but today there are cities inside the United States that, if there's a gunshot, it can identify which weapon it was, exactly where it came from, and send it to the police so the police can go. Even whether it's automatic or semi-automatic. So you see how artificial intelligence is fully active throughout the American government. They are even working on war strategies, hunting terrorists, all of that.
Yes, for sure. And it's a funny thing, right? When we talk about the United States, it's like you mentioned in the message, etc. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that there. Sometimes you're on a road like that with no police. You stop the car, you see a car, and suddenly the police show up out of nowhere. They appear out of nowhere. It's impressive. You wonder where they were hiding.
Man, down there over by the sea.
Impressive, really impressive. In fact, I was in Tampa this January and I was with my daughter and there was a cyber truck, but it was red. My daughter said, "Wow, that's beautiful." I stopped at a traffic light while driving, so I took out my phone and snapped a picture. I took the picture and kept driving. Then at one point, I made a turn and didn't use my turn signal. Soon after, the police arrived. Woo! Then the guy asked me, stopped me and said, "Look, you did this, this, and this." Then I said, man, basically he was monitoring me, watching.
About
5 kilometers behind. Look, you were on your phone, you took a picture, you made a turn without signaling, you were going at X speed. I said, wow, because of the turn signal.
the city's cameras,
I think it will know.
or by your car.
No, yeah, but I think that inside the patrol car itself, it should have all that information.
It's monitoring you. If you do,
A mistake, if I raise it, that's exactly it. He
catches it. And how are you going to say you didn't do it if there's no?
Then I apologized to him and said, no, it's okay, go ahead, you're on vacation here and all. He let me go. But it's impressive the level of sophistication and monitoring they have. It's something that unfortunately we don't have here, right?
yeah, but actually it's a good thing. Can you imagine this government? Can you imagine this government with that? That's what I think, right? Can you imagine if Brazil had aircraft carriers today and had nuclear bombs? We'd be in trouble, wouldn't we?
For sure.
So that's something I keep thinking about. Is it good or is it bad? Because it depends on who's in charge.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, that's the reality today. Those who have power give the orders and those with sense obey.
Exactly, that's it.
Thank you for coming to discuss this topic with us. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your time.
Because it's a very important topic and unfortunately it's not common. It's not common.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, this kind of awareness isn't common, right? Yeah, but it's worth talking about it because it's in our daily lives more than anything else. Exactly.
not just today. Yeah, what I always tell my family, my mom, my stepmom, everyone who's older, is don't answer the phone, don't reply to messages from people you don't know. If someone calls pretending to be me or my brother or something like that, call us to check. Because it's really something that's been happening a lot, like you mentioned. It happens to older people, yes, but it also happens to...
With teenagers...
It happens to middle-aged people anyway. It happens to everyone, to everybody, right? So it's a very critical factor. And another thing that's also really complicated nowadays is this issue of parental controls for younger people, right? That's it. When we talk about TikTok, etc., that's where there's no kind of control at all. So I think it's really important for us to talk a little about this topic, which, as you mentioned, isn't that common. It's not common, but it's present in our lives, in all of our...
In our faces, in our hands, 24 hours a day.
Yeah, that's why we say, cell phones are a weapon nowadays.
Right? It's a weapon. It became an extension of your brain, because here you have things that you... Right?
You don't want to think anymore, you want to go there?
It's here, ideas, values. Today, the guy, I still haven't activated this feature. I'm afraid to tap my phone and pay.
Me neither. I haven't activated it.
Right? But it's a hell of a technology that makes things easier. No.
So you don't have to keep, I use it,
right? You don't have to keep carrying cards that
Yeah, sometimes I don't even carry my wallet, I just carry my phone.
Just with my phone. Even cars, right? It already works. If you have the device, you just enable the app.
You're at greater risk than me and Shyman.
Yeah, but that's part of it. No, he's the one. He has it here, see? It's part of it. The mark is here. He arrives right on time. It's part of it. It's already a logo, right? It's part of it. But here's the thing, right?
Friends are everything, which is why I have them. If something happens, I already know about it.
It's part of it. I need your help here. Yeah, because here's the thing. You're going to give up technology, comfort, right? Imagine having to walk around with a wad of cash in your wallet. That wallet, that big, but cash is something I don't even use anymore, actually. You don't use it anymore, me neither. So vulnerability is part of it. It's just that but it's better, in a way that we're not fully aware, because otherwise people wouldn't live in peace. Yes, people live thinking there's someone up there in some room, the conspiracy theory. Protecting. No, that's not what I mean. Samsung, right? The one that makes the phone, Apple, there's someone there who's protecting my data in here. Yeah, that's what people imagine, right? But that's cool. Thank you for coming here, and you'll always be welcome whenever you're here in Brazil. Thank you too. Man, thanks for making yourself available. I didn't ask you if you do cybersecurity for companies, for the American military. We do that too. You do that too? We do that too. That's a whole other show. We do that too. But of course, you can't say absolutely anything. Yeah, there's a lot of confidential stuff that we don't have. Cell phone. And look, the F-35S, the fighter jets and all that. Artificial intelligence. Of course. All of them. And Renato, a pre-candidate for deputy. He's running for federal deputy. The campaign hasn't started yet, right?
It starts after August 14th.
It starts then. You can ask for votes and everything, but you're a candidate for federal deputy, right? That's right, correct. Here in Paraná, correct.
Yeah, and I have a lot of contact with the American government, right? So that helps. We're going to bring some ideas from the American government and adapt them to the Brazilian government, right? Especially in this area of cybersecurity, some areas. Just a few of them, right? Only a few of them. But these are areas we need to focus on because we see that the country is very rich and there are a lot of things that need to improve, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. So we need to start investing in this area. So the government needs to start paying attention and investing in this area to maintain the security of our assets because after all, we are the ones who pay for it.
That's true, that's true. If the country doesn't take a stand, it disappears from the map of geopolitical relevance. And in your market, the mechanics are exactly the same. Today, the most valuable currency in the world isn't the dollar, it's attention. And for you, as a top entrepreneur or professional, what hurts the most is being the best at what you do and still remaining invisible. You have a great business, great knowledge, but nobody knows you exist. Have you noticed how hard it is for people to pay attention to serious content on social media? It seems like only dance videos or memes go viral. 15 years ago on radio and TV, I realized that the real mechanism to generate unquestionable authority depends on substantive content and a solid strategy. Today, generating 50 million views per month on social media, the method is already proven. I'm recruiting entrepreneurs and professionals who are the best at what they do, but who are still invisible. People willing to break out of the bubble, people to be recognized at the top of their market and have their expertise monetized here on the major platforms. It's a media game. And those who understand that they need to be a media company win. Your identity can't be outsourced. The business owner needs to put themselves out there. The time of recording with your phone any old way and selling something is over. The digital world demands absolute professionalism. So with that in mind, on August 16th, I have a 100% in-person immersion face-to-face with me here in my studio. I will personally guide you in building your authority with the killer method that brings me these results. The QR code is on the screen. There's a secure link in the description and in the first pinned comment. But there are only 5 spots left. When the last one is taken, the steel door closes and that's it, my friends. So hurry up. Now, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell and like the video because it takes a lot of work to make it. Here's to your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira and I'll see you at our next meeting. See you then.